This is Examined Leadership Podcast.
Look closer, be better.
I'm Kurt Lichty.
And I'm Andrew Idy.
We are continuing our discussion of the principles of war, analyzing each of them and discovering how they can help you in your personal life, in your business life, and in war, how they apply. Imagine it's Christmas Eve. You're suddenly awakened at 1 a.m. It's dark, it's cold, you're outside, you're wet, you're tired, you're hungry. What woke you up? Your commander. You're in the military. You're in a military uniform outside, and this is no ordinary Christmas Eve. The year is 1776. Your commander, George Washington. He tells you you're getting ready for a mission. Where to, you ask? He doesn't say. He can't say. He won't say. But he does tell you to get ready for a 3-day journey, pack 3 days of rations, and orders you to be outfitted with fresh flints for your muskets. He even awakes the musicians next to you and tells the musicians he wants them carrying their muskets and packing 3 days' ration. Everyone wonders what's going on. You are right next to the Delaware River. Yes, Washington is planning to cross the Delaware. But no one knows why. Everyone wonders what's happening. Christmas Eve, this is supposed to be the time of relaxing. In fact, during the war, this season was known as a time to prepare for battle, to strategize for the upcoming war season, to get your troops ready, to refresh. It wasn't a time for fighting. But Washington had a plan. He got boats, he got ferries, he got logs, anything he could to cross 3 battalions across the Delaware River with 3-day rations, prepared for a battle on the 26th of December. Nobody knew the exact target or when they would fight, but they were willing to follow. They crossed the Delaware in the ice. You know the painting. You've seen it. They cross the Delaware. They find the British soldiers. In fact, the Hessian soldiers, German mercenaries that were hired to fight the British war. On the morning of December 26th, you attack. With utter surprise, the Hessians are defeated handily. Only 3 Americans are killed and 6 wounded. And of those that were wounded and killed, the cold got to most of them. On the other side, 22 Hessians were killed, 98 wounded, and the Americans captured 1,000 prisoners. Seized muskets, powder, and artillery. It was a tremendous victory. What won the victory in this case? The principle of surprise. That is the principle we're discussing today. Obviously, there are a lot of other factors here. This is an Examined Leadership Podcast. George Washington's leadership cannot be underestimated. You can't talk about it enough. He had leadership like nobody's business, and we'll study him later. But the principle of surprise was employed perfectly in this attack, and the Americans won a tremendous victory. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
My thoughts are that stoic painting. I always wondered what the story was behind it. I legitimately did not know that was a surprise attack.
Total surprise. The Hessians had no clue what was happening. They were drunk from the night before. It was Christmas the day before. They're happy, they're resting, they're getting ready for the upcoming war season. Nobody knew this was coming.
Yeah, and if you look I think the Revolutionary War is one of the things that changed the way that modern warfare is now implemented. It's no longer soldiers just shooting at each other all the time, and I think it's because the British realized that's not how war can be fought anymore. The Americans, we've talked about this before in our other podcasts. Remind me what the other podcast was.
The principle of mass. We talked about just the British trying to outnumber the Americans, but because of the principles of war, a mastery of these principles, it didn't work.
Exactly. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, go back to listen to the Mass and Economy of Force, which is allocating your best resources to one specific purpose. And the Americans had to do that with mass, economy, and force, and also with surprise. They were fighting a superior army. And George Washington had to use the element of surprise. That's the only way you can beat people when you are an underdog. It comes with sports games, with martial arts competitions. You have to use the element of surprise, because if everything you do is predictable, you're not going to get the result you want. You're going to get really tired. You're going to have to outpower someone on a multiple occasions. But honestly, that is absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that was the story behind it. And I can't see that painting any other way now.
Yeah, it's a cool story. It gets even better. We'll jump into surprise here in a minute, but to flesh out the rest of the story, part of the reason he did it toward the end of the year is the enlistments were up. These people are tired of fighting. They're hungry. They're eating their dang horses. They're hungry, they're starving, they've got bloody feet. I'm going home. I'm not fighting this war anymore. My enlistment ends in 5 days. December 31st, he's about to lose hundreds of people. And so he's got to do it. This is his last chance. But the secrecy of it, making sure he didn't tell anyone what was going on except his top generals, was what helped it. There's a saying that loose lips sink ships. It's true. So surprise. The principle of surprise. This is, in essence, the principle that you must strike the enemy at a time, place, and manner for which he is unprepared. Surprise can decisively shift the balance of combat power and momentum. Choose the right time to attack your objective, whether it's war, whether it's a business strategy, a business plan, a launch of a new product. You have to have the principle of surprise. This week I was thinking about this. We just had our marketing meeting at doTERRA, and we have a BOGO, a buy one get one free promotion coming on at the end of this month. Very exciting for a lot of these people here. Our marketing, our call center, people want to tell the field what great products we have and what great promotions we have. Don't say anything yet. We want people to place their orders already during the month. There's a monthly ordering program, a loyalty program. Hopefully everyone has their orders placed by the 15th. In fact, we give them a free product if they do. We incentivize them to order early. And then we launch the secret BOGO towards the end of the month. The goal is to get them to order twice, doubling our volume, doubling sales. Now, if loose lips tell people what's going on, there's a BOGO, that there's a promotion at the end of the month, people are going to hold their orders. And they're only going to order once. And we lose the surprise, we lose the volume, we lose money for the business. Not a good strategy.
Terrible strategy. And something that's funny about that is you don't even have to tell them what it's going to be. Yesterday I was talking to my wife and she says, next week I have a surprise for you. And I'm just like, I want to know now. And then she eventually told me. And so now it's not going to be a surprise next week. So if it's a surprise, you have to keep it that way in all aspects of life. You don't say, oh, there will be a surprise next time. No, if there's either a surprise or there's not.
Exactly. Surprise or no surprise. Exactly. Another military example with Washington, we won't go through the whole story, but his evacuation of Brooklyn, beautiful. At night, the British are going to attack in the morning. The Americans are outnumbered. The mass is in favor of the British. They're going to attack us. We need to evacuate. So Washington orders an evacuation, but he keeps the rear guard there to keep fires lit atop the Brooklyn Heights. He's duping the British into thinking we're staying camped there. They're banging pots and pans. They're making noise. The fires stay lit up on the hill. So the British think, great, they're there. We're going to attack in the morning. And slowly, fortunately, there was a huge fog that evening. It's one of the books I've read about this. Fantastic book, 7 Miracles That Saved America. Totally recommend. There was a miraculous fog that came in and covered our tracks from sneaking out of Brooklyn. In the morning, the Brits were totally surprised that it was empty. We didn't have troops there. Secrecy, surprise, you gotta have it. D-Day, another great war example, my last war example. D-Day, Operation Fortitude and Operation Bodyguard was a secret plan to surprise enemy forces. The objective of the plan was to lead the Germans to think that the invasion would be north of Normandy. We even set up fake tanks, cardboard tanks. We had music playing of troops marching and noises and going on. Everyone thought they're going to attack north. They're coming. We didn't tell anyone when it was coming or what was happening. It worked almost flawlessly. We attacked the Normandy beaches. Tragic, somber, reverent day. But the plan worked. The surprise, the fake attack helped us secure victory. What other examples do you have?
So, if we're going to talk about surprise, I think that there's 2 elements to surprise, and that is swift and that is stealth. For a lot of people that watch boxing, they've probably had the same idea as me, where if you're trying to knock out your opponent, why not just throw haymakers the entire time? Have you thought about that?
Huge bombs. Just huge swinging bombs at your face. One of them's going to connect.
Exactly. And so that's how I feel like if I was a boxer or a kickboxer, I'd be going for head shots. I'd be going for head kicks, uppercuts. I'm trying to end this fight quickly. And so it never made sense to me why people practice the jab. Now, if you don't know what a jab is just a short little punch straight to the face. There's not much power behind it.
And it's usually with your offhand.
Exactly. So it's with the hand that doesn't even have the knockout power to begin with. And I'm thinking about it. Why do people do that? They sit there and the jab. And most of the time it's because it's swift. the person that you're fighting against is trying to not get knocked out. And so when you hit them with the quick jab, it confuses them. Don't you think that the element of surprise is primarily to confuse your opponent?
Yeah, so the jab, I've seen knockouts with jabs.
That's true.
So there's two functions there. The jab is surprising them. If you're lucky, you get in, you break the nose, you knock them out. But it's also setting up another surprise. You throw 4 or 5 jabs in there, you throw 10, 11, you're training them to parry. You're training them to push away that jab, and then when they're not expecting it, once they're set up, once you've trained them to react a certain way, then you go for the power hit. You knock them out with your right hand.
Exactly. And so not everything that you do with a jab or something with surprise has to be a home run hit. It just has to be something that no one sees coming. In February, we had one of our most record sales, our record month of sales, and we didn't really do anything crazy. When I think about February, I think that we tried to promote one of our most least popular products, which was one of our health shakes. And we promoted it. If you buy one of these products, you'll get one of our health shakes. It was nothing crazy. It's one of the most least popular products, but we did it, and it kind of took everyone off the surprise. And because of that, the volume of sales went up. And it was the element of surprise. It was quick. It was a quick decision that no one was expecting, and it gave us good results.
Yeah, the swiftness. So like you said, to increase your surprise, if you're strategizing, how do I surprise? In business, in war, well, you can be swift. You can do something really fast. No one's expecting it. If I come up to you and just smash you in your nose, you're surprised. If I'm telegraphing my movements, or if I'm telegraphing my business plan, if I'm letting people know what's the newest product I'm going to launch, and I'm giving a competitor time to create a similar product, if you're taking forever to make decisions, I have a relative, he's a breakdancer, and his nickname is B-Boy Delay. He's known for delaying, for being late, for being slow. If this is your nickname, you already know that you need to work on surprise and swiftness. You need to start acting faster. We've got a great episode about that also. Offensive. It's funny to me how intertwined these principles are. The principle offensive combines perfectly with surprise.
Exactly. And the other element of surprise is also stealth.
Yes.
And one of my favorite stories of stealth is the Trojan Horse. And when you think about the Trojan Horse, let me give you some background of the Trojan Horse, because I know that people know what a Trojan Horse is, but I think that a lot of people lack the understanding of where it actually came from, the etymology of the story. So the Trojan Horse is a story from the Trojan War about a subterfuge, or a horse, that the Greeks used to enter the independent city of Troy and win the war. In the canonical version, after a fruitless 10-year siege, so they're just going at it. The Greeks are trying to overthrow the Trojan city. They're just battering rams. They're attacking the front. It's not working. They have to try something they haven't done before. They have to surprise the Trojans. After this fruitless 10-year siege, the Greeks constructed a huge wooden horse and hid a select force of men inside, including Odysseus, who was one of the Greek leaders in this mythological story. The Greeks pretended to sail away. So kind of like what the Americans did in the siege of Brooklyn, right? They pretended to sail away, and the Trojans pulled the horse into their city as a victory trophy. That night, the Greek force crept out of the horse and opened the gates for the rest of the Greek army, which had sailed back under the cover of night. The Greeks entered and destroyed the city of Troy, ending the war. When I thought about that story, I also thought about the theme of tact. We use tact in the workplace on numerous occasions. And that tact could be, making friends with everyone around you. Even if you don't really like them, you have to use tact. You don't just take your objective, hey, I'm going to overpower you with my opinion, because people always put up that defense. Have you ever noticed that with it? When you come in hot with your hot take and your opinion, and you say words like, I'm telling you, yep. What does the other person do? Does that make them back down?
Or if you start your sentence with but, or immediately they're not listening.
Exactly. And that's because you're trying to go head on with the ego. You are the Greek soldier. You are the Greek army trying to batter ram through the gates of Troy. It's not going to work. You're going to spend 10 years of doing it. So you have to try another way. In the workplace or with relationships, tact and surprise, you don't want to deceive people. I don't want to mislead anyone listening that you want to deceive. But a way that you can use a Trojan horse is by finding something in common with anyone you deal with. If you do name repetition, if you find out the sports team someone likes or other kind of hobbies, anything to find common ground, you're already using surprise. You're using tact, because if you get people to like you and if you're able to find common ground, people are going to open up the gates and then your Trojan horse can go right in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I voted for Donald Trump. I support Trump. I think he's doing a great job. I like a lot of his policies. He's great in the economy, unemployment, the judges he's nominated. I think he's doing a great job. He's very polarizing, though. When I bring up politics and someone says immediately, I hate Trump, if I immediately rebuttal, like you're saying, they don't even listen to anything I have to say. So I've learned to say, oh, interesting. Tell me why. Oh, you don't like that? That's interesting. Good thought. I haven't agreed yet. That's a thought.
The classic. Now there's an idea.
And they think I'm agreeing with them. I didn't agree with you. There's an idea. And then I just listen to them. And they realize, wow, he's listening. And then eventually they're going to ask, so you agree or what do you think? Well, those are some thoughts. And then I'll respond with, actually, I like this and this policy. What do you think about that? I've opened up policy. They're now listening to me. It's easier. Why are you talking about the Trojan horse, though? I can't help but think about the Monty Python movie when they made the Trojan rabbit and they bring it up to the gate and they're asking, so what's the plan now? The French just brought in the Trojan rabbit. Well, now, Lancelot, Galahad, and I wait till nightfall and then leap out of the rabbit, catching the French totally unprepared. Like, wait, who's jumping out of the rabbit tonight? Me and totally misunderstood the point of surprise. Anyway, good stuff. On the war level, this definitely works. You have to surprise your enemy. On a business level, you want to surprise your audience. You want to make a product that's going to surprise them and really excite people. You want to surprise your competitors. You want to make sure you get to market first. You surprise them with a new product, with a new idea, with a new method of communication. You talked about Blockbuster and Redbox before on another episode. Excellent use of surprising and being first in the market. On a personal level, this also works. As I'm trying to relate surprise to my own life, for me, my biggest enemies are self-doubt and self-hatred. I struggle sometimes with doubting myself, more than sometimes, quite frequently. That's my enemy. If I give my enemy ammunition, it can overtake me. It can be really powerful sometimes. To help me with self-doubt, I need to make sure I have people that believe in me. You got to be careful about who you share your dreams with. I wouldn't just share your dream with anyone. When you have a big idea for life, for business, when you've got something that you're really excited about doing, or I want to apply for this job, or I'm going to create this. I've decided I've got this new fitness plan with this, or whatever it is. I'm going to marry this guy or this girl. Make sure you're sharing that with someone who's trusted. Because if you share that with someone who's going to shoot you down, you gave your enemy, self-doubt, that's my enemy, more ammunition. I don't want to give my enemy more ammunition. If I tell someone that believes in me and believes in my dreams, immediately they're going to support me and say, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. I'm really proud of you. I'm here to support you. How great is that? If someone doesn't really believe me, if they're not in my inner circle, their first comment might be, that's a dumb idea, or that's never going to work. Oh, yeah, right. I've seen you try this before. It's not going to work. Dang it. I just lost the element of surprise to my enemy. Now I'm self-doubting, and now I've got others doubting me. Less likely I'm going to complete my mission, my plan now.
Well, you make some great points then. I think that equally as important as surprise is security, which is another podcast that you did with your brother that's in the active military right now. So If you haven't gone back and listened to that podcast just yet, you need to. Which episode is that?
Security.
Episode of security. And part of this is to know thyself. To protect yourself from surprise, you have to be secure. And to be secure, you have to know your enemy and you have to know thyself. And there's a Latin saying that says, "Nisi ipsum," which I believe I've said on this podcast before, but it's Latin for know thyself. And if you don't have self-awareness, you will be an absolute liability in your own personal life, in your own personal relationships, and especially for your business. Just as much as the competition, which we always view from the outside coming in, your competition is from the inside as well. Because you have people that will either leak out information, just like you said, they will shoot down good ideas if they don't support you, but also just your own tendencies. If you're just constantly surrounded by people that don't have self-awareness and they make the same mistakes over and over, you don't want to trust them with your good ideas. And so just as important as surprise, there's security. And to have security, you have to know yourself and you have to know your enemy. When I was preparing for this podcast, it made me think of a quote about knowing your enemy. And I'm sure you've heard of Sun Tzu in the book The Art of War.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you know a little bit more about Sun Tzu and his background. I believe he was a Chinese military commander back a long time ago. And this quote comes from his book called The Art of War. And it says, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle." Now, what are your thoughts about that saying? What are some of the things you picked out of that?
Powerful. You have to protect. Sometimes the enemy is from within. You can be your own worst enemy. And sometimes it's without. You have to know both. I think he's emphasizing the fact that knowing yourself may be the more important of the two.
Exactly, because he says, if you know the enemy and yourself, you don't need to fear. You can go to 100 battles, you're good, because you know both enemies here. If you know yourself but not the enemy, he says at least you'll trade off one for one. Because you know yourself, you know your self-awareness, you know your own tendencies, and you notice that you were talking earlier when you were being vulnerable that you can feel yourself have self-doubt, or you can have days where you don't like yourself. At least you recognize this. Now, are there things that you do when, with your self-awareness, when you start to feel yourself having these tendencies come out, because you've had the time to sit down and acknowledge what's going on with your own self, are there remedies that you can do right now that can combat those tendencies of self-doubt and not liking yourself at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I've built in strategies, coping mechanisms. I love to exercise, being active, making sure I'm exercising. I love taking my shirt off when I'm done exercising, just doing a pec inspection and seeing, man, I'm huge. Look how massive I am. You get that pump right after you're working out. Feels great. I love the runner's high. I love, playing with my kids makes me feel valuable. If I see that my kids are happy and smart, it makes me feel valued. So I have a long list of things that I can feel happy and valued and not doubt myself. Adding up wins, counting your daily wins, and not against other people, not necessarily competing against other people, but that's a validation for me. I was right there. Look what I just did. I accomplished that. Counting those wins, people talk about counting your blessings. I think it's more important to count your wins. Check it out. I won there. Ooh, that's a victory. There's a victory. There's a validation. To me, looking for adding those validations throughout the day gives me a lot of confidence.
Exactly. One thing I do to protect myself from surprise, from my ego, or from having a health issue is staying disciplined and keeping a journal. I write down things I'm grateful for every day. I write down things I'm doing to make myself better every day. When I stop doing that for a moment, I am liable from being under surprise attack from my ego or from something at work that happened that I didn't like. I'll notice whoa, I'm taking this really hard. I really did not like what was being said, and it's bothering me that this is having this much of an effect on me. Then I do with some self-awareness. I'm I didn't wake up on time today. I got a late start to my day. I didn't do any reading. I didn't listen to any podcast. I ate a terrible breakfast. I didn't get much nutrition in me. Mm-hmm. I left myself up for surprise of the day. So if you stay disciplined in the morning, you have security, which that doesn't guarantee that you won't have a surprise attack, but at least from within, you knowing yourself.
Yeah, you're protecting yourself. They're companion principles, security and surprise. So going back to what I was saying, I'm always careful with who I share my dreams with. Talked about loose lips sink ships. The Bible even says, don't cast your pearls before swine. Even when I'm talking to my wife, sometimes I tell her, we have this phrase when we want to say something really private or really that we're self-conscious about, or something that means something to us that we don't want any criticism for. We'll say, hey, I'm opening up my safe. These are protected thoughts. These are protected feelings. I'm about to share something with you I'm not feeling totally secure about. And that's an indication. It's a key word to the other person. Okay, time to just listen. Let me hear this out before I rebuttal, before I say anything. I'm opening up my safe. So I'd be careful giving away the element of surprise to your enemy. Be careful who you share your dreams with. Make sure it's someone that really supports you.
Exactly. So if I were to wrap up this topic here, I would say that my key points are: surprise is learning how to be swift. It doesn't always have to be a knockout punch. If you have quick, decisive action, you can usually catch people off guard. You can usually catch your target market off guard, and it's a good thing. It doesn't have to be a knockout punch every time. As long as you have quick action, you can usually beat the competition, whether that's yourself or others around you. Using stealth, using tact in the workplace, finding common ground to lower down people's defensive guard so they're more willing to listen to you. Just like the Trojan Horse. You're not trying to deceive people in the workplace. You're trying to use tact, which is an element of surprise.
Yeah.
Maybe if you also come off as disagreeable, once you start being agreeable with people, they're kind of like, whoa, wait, I'm actually going to listen to what Kurt has to say right now. He's agreeing with me right now. Even if, Kurt, you don't agree with me, you know, the most intelligent people I've ever come across are people that learn the opinions of both sides.
Yeah.
And they're willing to at least even sometimes agree with something that is against their opinion. And that is a great tactic for the workplace because you kind of bring people together and more people will be willing to listen to you. Also, make sure, just as much as you know your enemy and just as much as you want to study your target, you need to study yourself. Practice self-awareness on a regular basis. How am I feeling right now? What makes me tick? What are some things that I can do to prevent this from happening, prevent myself from being caught off guard? And what can I do to bring myself a foundation? If you have a team out there, make sure you practice self-awareness with your team. Are you a delusional leader that thinks that everyone likes you without actually paying attention to people that look up to you because of your decisions? Those would be my main tips.
Great summary. Don't be caught off surprise, whether it's an external enemy or whether it's yourself. Coming full circle, closing with Washington, being aware of yourself. In his farewell address, there's a quote I'll read word for word. Love it. He said, "In reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error. I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. Whatever they may be, I fervently beseech the Almighty to avert or mitigate the evils to which they may tend. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will never cease to view them with indulgence, and that after 45 years of my life dedicated to its service with an upright zeal, the faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as myself must soon be to the mansions of rest." Being self-aware and knowing that a few flaws, we all have them. Hopefully, they'll be dismissed. If you can temper yourself, if you can master yourself, be aware of your flaws and guard against them, not giving the enemy the element of surprise. His wish was granted. Your wish will probably be also. Again, this is Examined Leadership. Look closer. Be better. Use some of these tips to make sure that you're using the element of surprise to improve yourself.
Signing off.